Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us today for this wonderful opportunity to meet Gwen Jorgensen in our Q&A. Gwen is an accountant turned queen of triathlon. Since winning gold in the triathlon at the 2016 Olympics in Rio, Gwen Jorgensen has captivated fans of running, in part because during the golden performance, she pulled away throughout the run segment of the event and had the fastest split of the day for the 10K. In 2017, Jorgensen announced she was giving up the comfort of the triathlon dominance to pursue a bold new goal, win an Olympic gold medal in the marathon. Her announcement came just months after giving birth to her son, Stanley. Jorgensen has husband and chef and former pro cyclist Patrick Lemieux by her side, and they work seamlessly as a team. Gwen is a relatable and accessible working mom who continues to inspire others on her new journey and her family's support every step of the way. As a two-time Olympian and world champion in triathlon, Gwen's passion for sports started at the age of 8. She ran, played basketball, swam throughout middle school. Her focus was on making friends through sports, school, and violin lessons. Gwen swam and ran cross country at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she earned her master's degree in accounting. Join me in welcoming Gwen Jorgensen from Portland, Oregon to our Q&A. Thank you, Gwen. So glad you're here. I'd also like
Thank you, Mary.
I'd like to take a second and just thank our sponsor, Chevron, for giving us this great opportunity to be able to spend a few hours or an hour in the morning with you. So thanks for being here.
Of course, looking forward to it.
So let's take yourself back to when you were 3rd through 8th grade. What were some of the lessons you learned from going into sports and what being on a team and individual sports both helped you with? What did you learn from that?
Yeah, when I was that age, my parents said that both myself and my sister, we had to have at least one sport and one musical thing that we did. And so for me, it kind of gave me some independence. I started swimming from a very young age, and that was kind of my own thing. It wasn't something my parents forced me to do. And for me, it was just a time to make friends, have fun, but I learned a lot through sport. It taught me that there are times when it's really difficult and you may not want to do it. And so I kind of learned how to have discipline and dedication and how to get through those times when it wasn't easy. I had to force myself knowing that if I wanted to accomplish my goals every day, wasn't going to be perfect and it wasn't going to be the exact thing that I wanted.
And was there any difference between the discipline to play the violin and the discipline for sports? And do you still play the violin?
Yes, there was a very big difference. I loved sport and I actually did not like violin at all. I chose it when I was younger because that's what my sister chose, and I loved doing everything she did. But a few years into violin, I think I started violin at 5 or 6 years old. And once I started swimming competitively, I felt like violin was taking away from sport, and I was just wanted to be on sport. And I'm actually really grateful that my parents told me that I had to continue with one music and at least one sport, because for me, it taught me how to be successful in something that I didn't enjoy. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a huge lesson that allowed me to be successful as an Olympian and allowed me to get a gold medal, because I've realized and learned at a young age how to dedicate and put time into something and master a skill when maybe I wasn't super enthusiastic about doing it.
Yes. Good, great lesson there. At Girls on the Run in Heart and Soul, we have lessons that teach us about self-talk. Through your partnership with Chevron, we've been able to share some great educational videos with our newsletter recipients and our fall participants. The video for next month is about highlighting your positive self-talk. Tell us a little bit about why that's important, not only presently, but also when you were younger, why that question resonates for you.
Yeah, I, from a very young age, started journaling. And it started, just with writing down the time and distance of what I was doing sport-wise. And as I grew older, it's progressed. And now I journal every day. And I write down 3 things I've done well and 3 things I could improve upon. And that is something that really gave me a lot of self-confidence and belief. When I was younger, I often found it really easy to find my faults. I found it really easy to say, oh, I need to improve this. I could have done that better. And I had a difficulty really taking a step back and giving myself praise. And so through journaling, I was able to every day, I write down things that I am doing well. And then I can look back on that, and it gives me a lot of confidence in this day and age, especially with social media and all these other things. You can have a lot of random people maybe give you unsolicited advice. And so I think it's so important to have that confidence within yourself. And you can do that, I believe, through journaling and through seeing that every day you do things that are positive and that help you achieve your goals or become a better person. And that's something that gave me a lot of self-confidence. And I think it's something that's really good to implement from a young age. And it's also really fun when you're older to look back and see how you've grown and to see some of the things that you've progressed from.
At Girls on the Run, we call those glow and grows. So
I love that. Yeah.
Isn't that a great terminology?
The things that you glow at and the things you can grow at. I really love that. That is awesome.
So we also always tell our girls that they're stronger than they think. Can you share with us a time when you have shown strength that you didn't think you had?
Yeah, so the first time I qualified for the Olympics was in 2011 in the triathlon. And I remember going into the qualifying race, and I knew that if I was top 8, I'd qualify for the Olympics. And I had no belief that I could do that. I did have a little bit because I guess I did end up qualifying, but I remember just qualifying and thinking other people had told me going into that race that I could qualify for the Olympics, that I had the talent, that I had the work ethic, that I had put in the time. But it was something that I didn't fully believe until I actually did it. And it's something that was really eye-opening to me. And I realized that having that self-belief can really catapult you forward. It can help you achieve more goals if you do have that self-belief, which is why I think it's just kind of tying it back to the last question, why it's really good to have those glow moments that you can recognize and tell yourself to help you give that self-belief. Because a lot of times other people may support you or they may not, but if you have the self-belief inside of you, you can do it no matter what anyone else is saying.
True. In 2011, you were how old?
Oh boy. I'm 34 right now. I need to do the math.
Were you in high school or out of college?
I was out of college. I was 2 years out of college.
Okay. And the dream of being an Olympian started when?
So when I was young, when I started swimming, like 8 years old, that's kind of when I dreamt of being an Olympian. And to be honest, that dream disappeared for me. I dedicated a lot of time to swimming, and I kind of just realized that I wasn't making national teams. I wasn't making junior nationals. I wasn't making junior Olympics, anything like that. And so for me, from an early age, middle school, I would say I was kind of like, okay, I want to be an Olympian, but I don't think I have what it takes to be an Olympian. And so I had that dream early on, then it kind of went away. And I think that's another reason why I maybe didn't have complete self-belief in myself going into that Olympic trials in 2011 in the triathlon, because early on, I maybe thought, oh, I can't do that. And so that was a really good lesson for me to realize that things change, and don't hold on to one moment. If you think like, oh, I can't do this, things do always change, and you can work harder and find different avenues to reach your goal and come at it through a different way.
Yep. And the journaling probably helped see the timeline of that as well, I bet, when you go back.
Yes, the journaling is something that I can't stress enough how important that has been for me. It did help me progress. It just helped me realize that I do have strengths, and it helped me realize all the positive things I do on a daily basis to achieve my goals.
Yep. You know, one of the lessons actually in Heart and Soul this week, we talked about self-confidence and the importance of establishing self-confidence. And, you know, can you, one of the questions is, can you try new things, do poorly at it, and still get great self-confidence out of that. You want to speak to that a little bit for us?
Yeah, of course. I have been through that many times, I think, in my life, and I'm in the middle of it right now, switching from being an Olympic gold medalist, the best in the world, to running, where I've never been a professional runner. I ran in college, but didn't really have the pedigree to become a pro athlete at the time. So, I kind of entered a new sport at the bottom. And for me, I really, I just went after my goals. And it's something that's exciting for me. I've always been really motivated by challenges. So things that are difficult to do. And for me, running it's a challenge. It's something that I'm not an Olympic gold medalist at. I have to work super hard at. And I've learned that through swimming and through other sports and even through violin. And so for me, I think having challenges is something that's really positive, and how I'm able to overcome it in those moments is a lot of times I think of the stone cutter. The stone cutter is has his chisel and he's like chipping away at this stone and he's trying to break off a piece, and he may do it 999 times and nothing happens, and that 1000th time when he hits it, a piece of stone breaks off. And it wasn't that 1000th time that made a difference, but all those 999 tries before that really made a difference. And so for me, I always think of that, and I think of, if I'm doing the right thing every day, if I'm staying disciplined, if I'm focusing on the technique of what I'm supposed to do, the process of what I'm supposed to do, I may not be getting that outcome today, but if I continue to do it over and over again, eventually that outcome will manifest itself and I'll be able to achieve my goal. So that's something that I've learned over time. It's basically just being patient. But it's super fun to have been through that multiple times through swimming, triathlon, and now running, just to know that if I continue to focus on the process, to focus on the technique, do the right thing day after day, I may not see the outcome today, but eventually I will.
That's a great analogy and a great story, but it's also a great visualization, like something you really tap your brain into and use on the days that it's, a little more difficult to get up and get out there. So you probably touched on it a little bit when you talked about the violin and learning something that's a little difficult for you, but what are some of the things you'd like to tell your younger self, and not only your younger self, but maybe our audience today, as well as up and coming athletes?
Yeah, when I was younger, I think I put too much emphasis on the sport as me being a human being. So I identified as an athlete. I identified as a swimmer. And so that meant if I had a bad performance, I was sad. It affected my mood. It affected who I thought I was. It affected what I thought other people thought of me. And so I think what I would tell my younger self is to have that self-confidence, to believe in yourself, to know that if you are doing the right things on a daily basis, that's what matters. And also to know that sport, or whatever it is that you're into, art, music, running, obviously girls on the run, but whatever you're into, don't let that define you. As a young athlete, especially at your age, everything is changing. School, there's a lot of stressors, there's just so much stuff going on. And so I think it's really important to not tie your self-worth to sport. And that's something that I struggled with as a younger athlete. And I would say that I even, I got sad. I would let it affect my mood, and then it would affect other things in my life. And so if I could tell my younger self something, it would be like, make it fun, because some of my best memories are from sports growing up, just having my best friends, just being able to meet some new people that like to do what I did. And that's the part that I think is really good. And I think it's hard when you're younger to really see the bigger picture and to see that sport doesn't define you. But I think that's really important to understand.
I agree, especially in this day and age when everything else is changing so quickly, to pin everything on one facet of who you are is detrimental versus beneficial to your performance, probably even.
Exactly. And I think we just need to give ourselves grace. Even me this day and age, I have a son now, and if he doesn't sleep well, I know that, okay, that can affect my performance. And I just need to give myself some grace. I need to give myself just a little bit of forgiveness too, and know that every day isn't going to be perfect and every day you can't improve. That's unrealistic.
Right.
And so just to understand, if you're going through the process in the right way, that's the only thing that really matters.
Yeah. So our curriculum is designed so that over the course of the season, our girls develop various life skills surrounding confidence, connection, empathy. How has developing the soft skills, the empathy, the caring for each other, the tapping into other people's moods kind of thing, played a role in your life as an Olympian, but also as a certified public accountant?
Yeah. For me, I think what I realized is if I give to others, others help and give back as well. And I actually learn from giving to others. And so I've always been a big proponent of having group activities. So exactly what Girls on the Run is, having people to run with. And I train with my direct competitors. I train with people every single day who I want to beat on race day. But that doesn't mean I want them to do poorly. Like, it's this matter of, I want them to do well. I'm invested in them. They're invested in me. And having that team mentality actually rises everyone to the top. And I think that really taught me a lot of empathy and caring, and just being able to see that how I can impact others is actually very fulfilling as well for me and as well for them.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because running is basically an individual sport, right? So to be able to form a team with your competitors gives you somebody to root for even besides yourself. So I like that. That's very Girls on the Run-ish. I like that.
Yes.
So throughout your life and in your bio, we mentioned your husband. So we know he's there to support you and help with your training and your food and all of that. How when you were younger, were your parents involved and your friends, and how did they lift you up to become the athlete and the person you are today?
My parents were always just very supportive, but never pushy. So they showed up to all my swim meets, all my track meets. They paid for me going to swim lessons, which was, a little bit of a struggle for them growing up. I could only choose one sport to do just because of that financial cost of it. But for me, it was something that they always made sure that I could do what I really loved. But they never really pushed me, and that's something that I definitely want to carry over into my children, and how I raise them. I think it's so important for the child to know what they want to do, because we all have something different in our heart, and so just to support and to let them do what they want to do, I think is really important.
Yes, I'm thinking back. I have three daughters who played competitive soccer, one in college and played in college. She's not in college anymore, but I'm hoping that if anybody ever interviewed them, they would have similar things to say about that. I'm sure your parents are very pleased with that answer. So what goals do you have for yourself now, both personally and moving forward towards the Olympics?
Yep. So last year the Olympics were canceled, and so everything is kind of moved forward a year. So my immediate goal is this year, 2021. There's the track Olympic trials in June, and so that's what I'm training for. I actually have a team here in Portland, Oregon, the Bowerman Track Club, and we train together. And we're really fortunate that we're all basically quarantined so that we can train together. Not everyone has that luxury, but we also can put on some races ourselves, which are just our teammates, no one else, to keep it really small and COVID safe. So my immediate goals this year are to qualify for the Olympics, and I would be doing that through the Olympic trials in June. So that's my immediate goals, and probably reevaluate after that. But yeah, for me, I won Olympic gold in the triathlon, and I really want to make it to the Olympics in running as well.
How much of a disappointment was that with the Olympics being like, that had to be a huge letdown because you're peaking and then.
Exactly. Yes. The Olympics is a once every 4-year opportunity. And it's kind of hard to wrap your head around when you're your age, when you're that young, that you can prepare for a one-day event for 4 years. but you take 4 years of dedication, and you kind of have this cyclical cycle, and you keep trying to improve, and that 4th year is kind of the peak, and you can't really hold that peak for 4 years. And so when it was canceled, it was difficult, but as well, I think sport has really taught me that you have to execute on what you can control and accept what you can't control. And COVID was something that we can't control. So for me, it honestly, it's a lesson I've learned a long time ago that was hard, but now that I've learned it, it's really easy for me. It's just, okay, I can't control that. Move on. What can I control? I can control that what I do today will, even if I can't race, I know that all the fitness I'm gaining will carry over into next year, that I'll be a better athlete next year if I do X, Y, and Z today, if I eat healthy, if I, continue to journal, if I continue to work out. And so for me, it wasn't easy, but it was just something that you can't control it. So it wasn't even an option to kind of get upset about.
Right. And moving forward, I'm sure journaling is part of your plan and how you achieve your goal. Are there other pieces that you use on a regular basis to get to where you want to be?
Yeah, so I actually work with a psychologist, with a nutritionist, with a physiologist, a lot of people. And so we work on things like form. So we'll tape my husband will actually like videotape me running, and then we'll send it off to physiologists, and they'll analyze my form. I work with a sports psychologist, and a lot of that is kind of thinking of like self-talk, self-belief, and one thing I'm working on right now is talking to myself in the second person. And so I'll say to myself, like, Gwen, you are strong, Gwen, you have quick feet, relaxed shoulders, elbows driving back. And so I kind of am talking to myself from inside my brain, and telling myself the things that I want to accomplish, like quick feet, Gwen, you are powerful, Gwen, drive those elbows, Gwen. And those are the sorts of things when I get in really tough moments that help carry me forward into the next moment. A lot of times when you're running, you go through this spot where you feel like I can't go any further. And when that happens, I like to switch back and go, interesting. Why are you saying this? Can you really not go 2 steps more? And I'll go 2 steps more and realize, oh, you know what? I can go a little bit more. All right, let's try to go 3 steps now. And so self-talk like that, if you're working with a psychologist, is something that's been huge for me. So I definitely try to leave no stone unturned.
And those conversations also eat up the time as you're running. So
exactly. And before you know it, you're like, I'm done.
I'm finished. That's great. As a board member of the USA Triathlon Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Access, or IDEA initiative, talk to us about why it's important for you to help lead the change you'd like to see in the running community for women and minorities.
Yeah, so this is something that's super important to me. I have been given so much through the sport of triathlon, and I want everyone to be able to experience sport. Running is something that I love personally, and I want to make sure that others can be involved in sport, can get that running. And not everyone's going to be an Olympic gold medalist, but having a lifelong sport, something you can do, is not only really good for your health, good for you mentally. It's a great way to make friends, to socialize. I use sport as my social time. And obviously with COVID, it's a little hard right now, but you can still do virtual things like this through sport. So, for me, it's super important that everyone has an equal playing field, and that everyone can be included. Everyone can experience sport through what basically I want them to be able to experience what I've experienced. And I feel like I've been given so much that it's really important for me to give back to people who maybe haven't yet been exposed to sport.
That's great. It's actually why I started Girls on the Run in Greater Houston, for the exact same reason. The empowerment that running gave me as a child and morphed into college and onward, I wanted to share that with everybody.
And it's done. Girls on the Run is an amazing organization that, we can give back to these young women.
Yep. So what attracted you to pursue a STEM. So science, technology, engineering, and math is STEM. And you're an accountant, so you fall into the math part. Where did that morph from?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't have a one word answer for you. I think, it's really important though for these young girls listening to know that it's okay to not know what you want to do.
Yes.
I went to college and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I just started taking different classes. And I remember I took a business class and I was like, oh, this kind of is interesting. Let me take a few more. And I took an accounting class and I thought, this is really interesting. And I just continued to take more classes in what interested me. And for some reason, I've always been interested in math. I remember as a young kid in grade school, middle school, high school, I always excelled in math and had more difficulties in kind of the language side. But I just was drawn to that. And I can't really give a reason why, but I think it's really important to know that your path can change. You can want to be something today, and that's okay if that changes tomorrow or in 3 years. But I think it's really important to find something that you enjoy. And for me, I enjoyed solving problems. I enjoyed how there was always kind of a concrete answer in math, and enjoyed that I could find the solution. And it was like a puzzle for me to try to find the answer. And that was something that was fun for me and that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, and tax accounting is where you are, right? And to me, that's almost like crime solving
It
sometimes.
is.
You know,
Yes. It's like reading the law book and trying to figure out a solution. And so it's exactly what it is solving problems. And I find that I think it's really fun.
I see that. Not, I couldn't do it, but I could be. So where do you hope STEM careers are for the girls that are watching today that'll be graduating from high school and college 10 years from now, and the gender equality in all of that?
Yeah, I just hope that no one ever feels held back from what maybe somebody else says or what somebody believes, or maybe what today is maybe a barrier. I was actually a first in my family, first generational female athlete. So when my mom was young, when she was growing up, she couldn't do sports. My grandma or people, around my mom, they were just like, no, girls don't do sports. That's for boys. And so I just think about how much that's changed in just the last couple decades. Like, I'm now in my 30s, but like I grew up doing sports. So that was a one generational huge change. So I hope there continues to be this great progress in STEM, in STEM jobs, in athletics. I just think that it's so important to realize that where you come from, who you are, if you think there's barriers, know that there are none, and that you can continue to fight to break those barriers. And that I hope to see you all doing a first for females as well, because that's something that's super exciting, and to pave the way for somebody else is something that is super admirable.
Yes, agreed. I must be of your mom's generation, because when I would go for a run, my mother would say, "Oh, Mary T, do you have to go? It's not ladylike to sweat." She like hated
Yeah.
that I ran. It was going to hurt my body, all of that. So
Yeah,
I,
it's shocking. I mean, they used to think that women couldn't complete marathons, and it's actually the opposite, that women are actually better going further distances than men.
yep.
But yeah, back in the day, like women had to dress up as men to try to finish a marathon. And so it has changed a lot. So Mary, I'm glad that you stuck with running though. I think that, you're a great example for these young girls to see that if somebody's telling you you can't do it or you shouldn't do it, if you love it, continue to fight, because you can make change. I mean, look at Mary, you've grown up now and you've started this entire organization and are touching so many young women's lives. And I think it's just important to see that you can do something if your heart is in it.
Thanks. I agree. Can you tell us why you decided to partner with Chevron and Girls on the Run? What's the idea behind that for you?
Yeah, I've always been super passionate about getting young female athletes involved in sport. I don't necessarily want everyone to be an Olympic gold medalist, but I want everyone to learn a lifelong sport. And running for me is something that I'm going to do long after I'm done as a professional athlete. It's something that brings me together with friends. It brings me so much joy. And that's what I want to bring to other young women. I want to expose them to the sport. I want them to see that it can be empowering, that it can lift them up, that it can teach you to be confident, teach you discipline, and just be a great way to have a social outlet as well.
Right. And I think, as a country, oh, geez, sorry. I don't know why it's doing that. There we go. As a country, we all need to find something that we can tap into lifelong just for our own health,
Yes.
not only physically, which of course is obvious, running helps us physically, but mentally and, calming us down and keeping us on track in other areas of our lives, I think we all need that. And if it's running or golf or tennis, pick any of them.
Yes,
Art.
agreed 100%. I think, especially with COVID, uh, the running has given me just something to keep me calm. If I didn't have running, I think it would have been really hard to get through this pandemic. But for me, I was still able to get outside. I was still able to go for a run. And that's kind of given me a stress relief and also gives me structure in a time of so much uncertainty.
Agreed. Yep. So one of the things we do with Girls on the Run is we have a community service project. It's not something that we'll do in this day of COVID, but we, under normal circumstances, we do that. How has running given you the opportunity to help your community, not only running community, but maybe where you live and grew up and all of that?
Yeah, so running has given me and triathlon this huge platform. And so for me, I feel really fortunate that I am able to reach out, and I have some sponsors. So as a professional athlete, I get paid for running, and I've partnered with a few different brands who I said, okay, if you're going to sponsor me, I also want you to invest in X, Y, or Z.
Oh, nice.
And so I have, one partner, it's an egg company, and they support me, but they also then give free eggs to a homeless shelter that's actually right down the street from where I live here in Portland. And so those are the sorts of things that I've been able to do through sport to give back. And then I also go there, haven't gone since COVID, but go there and help cook breakfast. So I can actually see the impact that we're making. And those are the sorts of things that I believe that's why I'm meant to do sport is to help others. And so for me, it's really important to use my platform, whatever it may be. It's going to change as I continue in life, but to use that to give back. I've been given so much through the sport that I also want to give back to others.
I love that. And I think the fact that you get to do it in your own community is a benefit for you as well as them.
Exactly. Yeah. Super, super uplifting.
So those are my questions. I have 2 pages of questions from the girls, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
You ready? Okay. So this is from the purple team. And actually the first question is from Trinity, who actually we saw come on.
Yeah, she was one of the first ones on the call.
She came on right at the same time you and I did. And she wants to know, did you ever give up on a hard challenge?
I've wanted to give up on a hard challenge many times. I remember actually almost quitting triathlon before winning gold. And the thing that actually pulled me back into sport was my journaling. And I wasn't getting the outcomes that I wanted. I thought I didn't have what it took mentally. I thought I didn't have what it took physically. And I wanted to quit. And my coach and my husband both said, okay, well, let's take 3 days. Let's get away from the sport. Let's take a mini break and see what happens. And in those 3 days, I didn't talk about sport. I didn't do anything sport related. I just kind of got away. And I found myself wanting more. I found myself thinking about all the things I had written down in my journal and realized like I was putting the time and effort in, and I needed to wait a little bit longer. Going back to that stone cutter, I knew I had been chipping away and I knew that my time would come. So I have wanted to quit. I've also wanted to quit the violin when I was very young because I didn't like it. I remember telling my mom almost every day, we got in lots of fights that she made me practice my violin 30 minutes a day, every day. And I was like, this is cutting into my athletic time. But I'm super glad that I stuck with it because I do think it's allowed me to be successful. There are times when it's going to be really hard. You may not enjoy it. You may not think you're getting anywhere, but if you can fight through that, you can break through a wall.
Yep. You talked about taking 3 days off, and Girls on the Run, we call that stop and take a breather. And in Heart
Yeah,
and Soul, we call it pressing pause. So
I love that. Yes.
teaching the girls those skill sets as well. So as you know, we culminate with a 5K at the end of our 10 weeks or 8 weeks this time. Kylie would like to know from the Purple team, did you ever run a 5K?
I have run a 5K. I've done it on the road and on the track. My first 5K was actually in college. I ran at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I remember I ran actually a 5K. I was a Big Ten champion. I was an NCAA All-American in the 5K. But something that I think is really exciting for me for the 5K is I thought in college, I thought there was no way I could ever go faster than 16 minutes. And I've almost broken 15 minutes now. So I've gone a full minute faster than what I thought was possible. And I just think that's a super important lesson to know where you are today. You can never foresee where you will be in the future, and not to set limits on yourself. I think that's really important.
That's a great lesson.
But
And
a 5K is long at your age. I never did one at your age, so I do think I think it's super important. You have to train for it. It is it's going to take a lot longer than 15 minutes.
yeah,
And it's important to make sure that you hydrate and that you have all your nutrients to finish that race, but make it fun. And I like to as well break up a race. So I don't think of it as a full 5K. A lot of times I'll be like, okay, I'm going to break it into 3 miles, or I'm going to break it into 5Ks. And I think that mentally really helps when you can break it into segments.
that's a great idea, because each K, to accomplish each K is, an accomplishment into
Yes.
it. And then again, it's back to what we were saying about, oh, I'm done. That's awesome.
Yep.
So you spoke about not, when you did the time trials, not certain you belong there, but when did you know that you could be an Olympic athlete? And that's from our Purple team too, but I don't know which of the girls asked that.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't fully believe it until I qualified. And even then I kind of struggled with the belief. And I had people saying to me, like, I didn't belong on the team. I didn't deserve it. It was a weird race, and that's why I qualified. And so for me, it actually took a while for me to accept that I was an Olympian and that I had put the work in and that I did deserve it. That may sound a little strange, but it took me probably until after I qualified. And I remember after I qualified, I was struggling, and I took a pause, and went on actually like a 3-day holiday, 4-day with my mom and my dad in Europe. I qualified in London, and I was struggling, and we all just took a family vacation together. And that was when I kind of realized, like, wow, I can't believe I did it, and got super excited.
Yeah, you need to take that pause so that you can enjoy the moment, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. So we talked about positive self-talk. I'm sure, like all of us in the world, there are times when you have negative self-talk. How do you turn that around for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's really important to acknowledge and to accept those negative thoughts. We all have them. They're not bad. Um, they're only bad if you let them snowball and you don't catch them. So when I have a negative thought, I like to go say, oh, that's interesting, Gwen. You feel like you're not good enough to do this. Well, let's remember why we're doing this, Gwen. We are doing this because you have a goal of making the Olympic trials team. How are you going to do that? You're going to do that by putting in the work, by keeping your shoulders relaxed, by being powerful driving down the finish line. So these are thoughts I have during a workout or a race. And I think it's good for everyone to realize that negative thoughts are okay. They're going to happen, but recognize them and then try to mentally get into talk to yourself further and say, what are your goals? Why are you doing this? And what should I be focusing on? And Mary, we talked about this earlier as well. Once you start doing that, you kind of get through that bad patch, and those negative thoughts are gone. And you're also then like almost so much time throughout the race or the workout or whatever has passed.
Right. Great advice. So how do you stay balanced? You've got so much going on, being a mom and a, Olympic athlete and a wife and a sister and daughter. How do you balance all of that? That's also from the purple team.
Yeah, I think balance is super hard. And that's something that is crucial to success. I said when I was younger, I let sport kind of define who I was, and I didn't have that balance. And that it turned out by me having bad performances. And so I realized just that I need that balance and that it's good. And I really enjoy it. And so for me, when I'm doing sport, I'm doing it as an Olympic athlete. We get no days off. Everything we do affects our performance, even resting. So it's important when I'm not working out that I'm not on my feet, that I'm not going out, that I'm not staying out late or, doing other things. And so everything I do does affect my performance, but at the same time, I have balance because I do, I make sure that I prioritize family. I do have a son. I talk to my mom and my sister daily, almost weekly. They're actually writing a book for middle schoolers right now about me. So it's super fun because we get to talk a lot about like what I was doing in middle school when I was your guys' age. And so it's just kind of a fun way to stay connected. And I think finding ways to connect with others that's sometimes outside of sport is super important to keeping that balance.
Great. And a training week looks like what for you?
So a training week for me is going to look a lot different than for you guys because this is my one and only job. I don't have school or anything else going on, but it normally looks like I wake up in the morning, have breakfast. I go for like an hour, 15 run, have something to eat, do gym for about an hour, and then I have lunch. I normally lay down and take a nap, and then I do another run for about 45 minutes, and then eat dinner and go to bed. So that's kind of my day. It's a lot of just running and eating and sleeping and resting. I do workouts twice a week. So on Tuesdays, I normally do a sprint workout. So shorter stuff with longer rest. And then on Fridays, I normally do a longer tempo workout. So like mile or 2 mile repeats and probably a total of 8 to 9 miles of work, which is massive. You guys should not be doing that. And then I'll do a long run once a week as well, which is anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours. Again, that's probably too long for you guys. It's definitely too long for you guys. But yeah, that's kind of a typical week for me.
That's packing a lot into it. And then our coach from the purple team happens to be from Wisconsin. So she wants to know what it was like to be at University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Oh, I loved my time as a Badger. And my husband thinks I'm so silly because we have like, I really want like a Badger room in my house. And we have this bathroom that has a red tub. And so I've just turned it into the Badger bathroom. And I have like all my Badger, Wisconsin Badger paraphernalia stuff like all over the bathroom. But yeah, for me, going to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I had so much pride, so much fun being able to, I just remember going to football games and just, I've never actually felt so connected to like a mascot and a thing. And I think it really taught me a lot that's carried over into my career now, being able to know, like, feeling that team atmosphere that we talked about kind of earlier, like in an individual sport, you can get that through having pride through what you're doing and helping others. And that's something I think I learned as a Badger.
Well, maybe your son will become an Oregon Duck, and then you
can
room in a Badger room. We've got a couple of questions from the pink team. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Olivia would like to know, is it hard being a mom and a runner, and how do you balance? So if you can just add to what you already mentioned on about that.
Yeah, I feel really fortunate that other people paved the way for me to show me that I can be a mom and a runner. I didn't think it was possible. When I was in triathlon, I actually thought like, okay, I'm going to stop. Like as soon as I win gold in triathlon, that was my goal. I was like, I'm going to have babies and be done. Like I can't do both. I can't be a mom and have a child. And over 3 or 4 years, I realized like, wow, actually that female is a mom. That's a mom. That Olympian's a mom. That Olympian's a mom. And I realized, wow, like maybe I can do both. And so, breaking those barriers and kind of showing me that I could do both by having other people do it was something that was super exciting. And it's something for me that gives me that balance. You know, we've been talking about balance. So if I have a bad workout or a great workout, I come home and my 3-year-old son doesn't care if I had a good workout or a bad workout. And just having that perspective, or even, you know, went through an injury 2 years ago, and having my son was something that got me through it, and really was a positive, such a blessing for me. So I think, you know, having a family, it's, I'm not going to lie, it was really hard. Giving birth and coming back from that was a lot harder than I thought. And everyone's birth process is different. But that was something that I was expecting that I'd be able to run within 7 days. And I was still bedridden at 7 days post partum. So, you know, I think learning those things is really important to me. But having a son is something that I think makes me a better athlete because it gives me so much perspective.
Yeah. And are any of your runs with a baby jogger?
um, they were when I was just starting back. They are not anymore. My son actually, though, he is such a runner, and we don't push it on him. And my husband actually wants him to ride his bike, not run. But I'll go out for my afternoon runs, and he always wants to run with me. So he'll run like 10 minutes. He's 3 years old. I'm like, this is insane that you're running 10 minutes with me. So a lot of times he'll run with me, and Pat, my husband, will be on the bike following us to pick him up and put him in the trailer when he's done.
And then Claire and Sophie were both asking about the Olympics, and Claire was wondering about the effort. And I think we kind of touched on that already, and how much you practice. You talked about what your weekly training schedule looks like. And then Sophia was asking about the pressure you feel from that. Do you feel a ton of pressure, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's something you have to learn. The first time I actually felt pressure, I remember was in college, where I won a Big Ten conference meet, and I was going into NCAA's, and it was the first time there was media exposure, first time people asking for interviews. And then for me, I don't do sport for that reason. I actually am an introvert, and so that was really, really difficult for me. And I don't think I learned how to handle the pressure until I actually met my husband. And he gave me a lot of perspective. There were certain things, you know, I didn't like. I didn't understand fans for a while, and he kind of taught me like, oh, this is a way that you can use your platform to make good in the world, and to uplift other people. And that kind of changed my perspective. And I also realized what my boundaries were. I realized I couldn't do interviews the day of a race. And so I kind of just learned like what works for me. And that was just through trial and error. But, you know, I actually went into the Olympics in 2016 as a big favorite. And so there should have been a lot of pressure on me. But by that time, I had really honed in on the focusing on the process, not the outcome. And I knew that all I needed to worry about was executing my processes and my techniques. And that's something that really allowed me to overcome the outside pressures.
Good advice there. Well, this has been lovely. I've enjoyed our time very, very much. Anything we didn't touch on that you'd like to throw in or mention?
Oh boy, that's always a tough question. I think I just hope that you girls are able to find some community through sport, and that this really is a lifelong sport and something you can do. Mary has started a great thing with Girls on the Run, and you may go through a time when maybe you don't want to run, and I suggest that you do what Mary talked about earlier, the pause. And just come back to it, and don't give up. Know that what you're feeling today may not be what you're feeling tomorrow.
Great. That's a wonderful way to end. So thank you, Gwen, very much. Round of applause, girls, like we do. Maybe an energy award. You know, what kind of energy award? Rock star. So thanks.
Oh, thank you.
Bye, everybody.